Hello, my friends in Christchurch, and congratulations on your conference. And I hope you have not only a very productive meeting over the next day or whatever, but also thoroughly enjoy yourself and take some heart for the progress that clearly is starting now to be seen by people on the ground in Christchurch. Look, I'm just talking off the cuff, wearing rather casual clothes because I've just come back from Philly, from the Democratic National Convention, and I'm trying to look fairly formal here with the New Zealand flag, regrettably not the flag that I would have preferred to stand behind, but that's another reminder that David Cameron might have thought about the dangers of referenda. But we won't talk about that, will we? Because these days I'm a diplomat. So, for those of you who are perhaps a little closer to my age, you may well remember the Fear and Loathing books. So I have just returned from a Fear and Loathing in Philadelphia at the Democratic Convention, and the preceding week, Fear and Loathing in Cleveland at the completely bizarre Republican Party convention, where I really went to the Republican Party more wearing my ex-political hat because our Prime Minister is the chairman of a group of what are called very loosely, I'd have to say, centre-right political parties, a thing called the IDU, the International Democratic Union. In any event, the situation in the Republican convention was, as I said, totally bizarre. I will, even though this is a fairly safe event, I still be a little careful and cautious in my comments. But it's a matter of public record that we attended a meeting in which either the leading Republicans never mentioned the name of their candidate, or they said less than flattering things about him. The Democratic Convention was a coronation, of course, in which the primary issue was to try and find a way forward to bridge the gap between the centrists represented by Hillary Clinton and the progressive wing, which, as you all know, performed astonishingly well through the candidature of Bernie Sanders. And I personally think, looking at it as objectively as one can, that Michelle Obama, President Obama, Bill Clinton, and also Joe Biden in his own very special way, did an outstanding job for Secretary of State Clinton in bringing the Democratic Party together. Now, TPP. If you judge the fate of TPP, which for those of you who are not deeply into it, and I know many people in the audience are extremely literate politically on TPP, you would think, why is Groser even raising the question? Have we got a completely naive ambassador in Washington? Clearly, now that Clinton has ripped up TPP in her public statements and says she doesn't want it passed during this wonderful thing called lame duck, which I'll come to in a minute, and Donald Trump is against all trade agreements, how can he delude himself into thinking that it's even remotely on the table? Well, the answer to that is because there are two sets of politics in any political situation: what is on the top of the table and the deeply subterranean reality underneath the table. So if you look just at the surface politics, TPP is now dead. If you look under the table, it's much more complicated, and there's everything in it for us to continue to fight, and that will remain both my priority, I know Todd, my successor's priority, and the Prime Minister's top priority in our relationship with the United States. And it's the priority of many other countries as well. So here's the math on it. TPP has to be ratified, first of all, by both Japan and the United States, because there's an 85% threshold written into the agreement, which means, in practical terms, it doesn't happen unless both the Japanese Diet and the United States Congress pass TPP, allowing the respective Japanese and United States executives to ratify the agreement. Nobody really thinks there's a problem in Japan. The problem is only in the United States. So, what happens? Well, I would say there is literally zero possibility of this even being presented to the United States Congress until after the US election on the 8th of November, I think the 8th of November. And there's a long period, for those of you who are not cognoscenti of US politics, let me explain something that will be familiar to many of you. There's a long period between the election and the announcement of the result of the next president and the inauguration. And during that roughly 3-month period, which is called the lame duck period of the president, the political past suggests this is an opportunity for some rather difficult things to be done in the term of the outgoing administration. Now, politics is therefore about timing and about numbers. That's the timing. Well, how do the numbers stack up? Well, everything depends on the Republicans. The Democrats are almost not relevant to this conversation. If we look at the past trade vote, we look at a thing called TPA, or Trade Promotions Authority, the authority under which TPP was negotiated finally in the last meeting that I attended, which finally got the deal together in Atlanta. And the Congress has to be submitted back to the Congress for ratification. Now, when that happened with TPA, the authority to negotiate, only 28 Democrats in the House voted for it. Only 28. 191 Republicans, many of whom literally say they hate President Obama, hate, not just have differences with President Obama, voted for Obama's Trade Promotion Authority. And as one very distinguished insider said to me some months ago, I, for the life of me, cannot work out why, since 191 of our opponents were prepared to vote for Trade Promotions Authority, why they would not vote for TPP. And secondly, of course, many of them have, shall we be polite, deep misgivings about Mr. Trump and his agenda. So all roads lead back to Paul Ryan and the Republican Party. This is level of detail and sophistication that the media, even in the United States, can't relate to. They just listen to the surface politics of this deeply anti-trade debate taking place. Please do not think that I think this is anything other than immensely difficult. But what I'm trying to encourage you people to do is stick to the fight. It ain't over yet. There used to be expressions that we were allowed to use, but they referred to certain dispositions of people that we're no longer prepared to use in modern discourse. But I'm sure some of you will recall the phrase that I have in my mind. So we will be there until the bitter end. I haven't lost hope. I know this is an uphill struggle, but I think this is extremely important to New Zealand. New Zealand has superb reputation. We have, of course, the president who will absolutely do everything possible to help the Republicans in his lame duck period, because this is a legacy issue for him. He is 100% committed. We've got this incredible relationship between our Prime Minister and President Obama. We will use that when the moment comes. And the final thing is that if my guarded sense of optimism proves to be wrong, as it may well be, we are in a heck of a sight better position than we were 30 years ago. So we have a whole suite of trade negotiations completed. We have a whole series of platforms. My reading post-Brexit is that the discussions we've had at a political and very senior official level with Brussels indicate things are still very much on track with the EU, which will be EU 27. I know that Todd and our officials are starting a discussion with Britain on what type of discussion we have. It's too early yet to be definitive about this, but we have choices. So I'm obviously hoping that TPP will be the biggest choice of all and will be in play. All I'm saying is that we're not backing the whole show on TPP any longer. We have got a much more mature situation. We've got a great series of platforms. I'm extremely confident for New Zealand, just as I'm extremely confident about the new future of the great city of Christchurch. Thank you for inviting me to address you. Once again, I've been brief.